Daniel, welcome to the Bitcoin Source. Can we start things off by having you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me. And like I was just saying at the beginning, before we hit record, thank you for stepping up and contributing to the space in the best way that you feel that you can. We need as many voices, as many writers, as many singers, songers, dancers that we can talking about Bitcoin. So one more is always welcome. And thank you for having me on the show. My name is Daniel Prince. I host the Once Bitten podcast. I started that back in January of 2020. And since then, I've interviewed over 300 people from around the world in the Bitcoin space. Or what's happening recently now, I've been interviewing people outside of the Bitcoin space where I think there's a heavy overlap, especially with health and nutrition. And another very important subject close to my heart, the education system and how and why people should be opting out of that and choosing a different path for their families and their kids. So that's me in a nutshell, other than I used to work in foreign exchange with fiat currencies all day long. Had no idea what a fiat currency was. I just knew it paid me a wage. So falling down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and looking back on my 18-year career in financial markets has been a bit of a self-discovery process and it helped me understand, I suppose, a lot of what was going on behind the scenes when I started to start understanding what is happening with Bitcoin. So, yeah, as they say, nothing's a waste of time. All of these different experiences that we have in life all lead you somewhere for some reason at the right time. And here we are. This is the right time. This is the time for Bitcoin to start flourishing. We just need more people to be educated about it. And conversations like these and the ones that you have are going to go a long way into helping people. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you. I'm humbled and honored. And, there was a lot to unpack there. But one of the main things that I definitely want to talk about is, when we go back to the earliest days of like when you discovered Bitcoin, when you were orange pilled, like, were there any people that inspired you early in the game? I mean, I know you're connected with Michael Saylor and you have been on the Bitcoin conferences and you've done so many huge things in the ecosystem. But, when you were a humble pleb, like, were there any people that kind of really sparked your curiosity to get started into Bitcoin?
Yeah, the first, I'd heard about Bitcoin a handful of times and just completely blown them off like everybody else, especially in my line of work where I was consumed all day, every day, chained at my desk, looking at foreign exchange prices, dollar yen, euro dollar, and just completely consumed by that world. So I knew when people started talking about Bitcoin, I kind of, my default like nonsense mindset was, this is internet geek money and it's going to go absolutely nowhere and these guys are all going to get wrecked. So it took me a long time after I'd left my career in the financial markets and started traveling with my wife and kids. I used that time to start searching for alternative investment opportunities. And that was very, it was lucky for me that point came as Real Vision were launching their platform. And I was a friend of the founder, the co-founder, Grant Williams. So Grant Williams and Raoul Pal founded Real Vision, and they started touring around the world and having very long-form, in-depth conversations with legends in many people's eyes, even mine in those days, of the hedge fund industry and other, parts of the financial world markets. And I was blown away by that kind of content, and I really enjoyed it. And there'd been nothing like that up until that point. It'd all been kind of 2-minute sound bites on CNBC, Squawk Box, and all of this kind of stuff. You never got that full depth, like, how are these people thinking? Why are they thinking that way? And what led them to think that way? And I remember asking Grant, are you ever going to do anything on this Bitcoin stuff? Because I thought it was dead. I didn't know anything about it, and it just kept coming back like the phoenix from the flames that it is. And he said, funnily enough, Princey, yes, we've got some episodes dropping in a few weeks' time. Just make sure you look out for them. And sure enough, the interviews then were with Wences Cesares, Tour de Mista, Trace Mayer. They're the ones I remember. I think there were a few more. And that just all of a sudden, oh my God, why have I been ignoring this thing? Because they were so eloquent in the way they spoke, and they weren't what I expected, like typical nerdy internet basement dwelling geek talking about their internet tokens. This was something completely different. So I had to start learning more, and I couldn't stop. As many people know, when they fall into the rabbit hole, you just cannot stop. Then I found Andreas, and that's when my understanding really started to take off. Him giving out those speeches in his early days, I was finding all of those, going back, finding them on YouTube and following that, and I bought his books, The Internet of Money, and yeah, watching Andreas on those videos, I still go back and watch them now to these days. Like they're brilliant. They're so good to go back and watch, and that was a very big part of my orange pilling journey. I'm trying to think of others. Yeah, I've mentioned that the main handful that were around in those days, and I wasn't even really on Twitter at that point. I mean, I was, but following Premier League and just other fiat nonsense stuff, the bread and circuses. So I guess it must have been around 17 when we had all of the initial coin offering complete nightmare and the ridiculous bull run that came with that. I started paying more attention to what people were saying on Twitter, and for whatever people think Twitter is, good or bad, you cannot take away the fact that the amount of Bitcoin knowledge that has been shared on that platform, the amount of maxis that have been forged on Twitter, I think it will always be remembered as a very fundamental learning tool, learning platform for people to share ideas, sharpen their ideas, meet people, form alliances, form businesses. People have found business partners on Twitter, specifically on Bitcoin Twitter. But what a place as well to release your writing. And as we got into 2018, 19, you had some longer form articles being written that were being, first of all, just put out there on Twitter. Hit this link and it'll take you to Medium, and then, oh my God, you're getting blown away by all of this incredible content. So whether that was Bitstein's early writing over at the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, or whether it was Breedlove dropping, Money Masters of Slaves and Money, which was another one, or Bitcoin is Zero, or Dergigi, any of his pieces. Every single day, it become more and more easy to find the signal without having to sift through the noise. You weren't reliant on mainstream media bullshit crypto articles where you'd read them and you'd come away more confused. With this group of people on Bitcoin Twitter and the following that they were garnering and the education that they were putting out there, it was such a huge step forward for all of us. And it inspired lots of other people as well, because then you've got people like Spetsy come out of nowhere, and he would start writing and sharing his thoughts. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. And then Safe's book drops in, when was that? Back end of 18, early 19? The Bitcoin Standard blows everybody's mind. And then Andy Edstrom, he drops Why Buy Bitcoin from the point of view of an ex-Wall Street bro. So that book for me was very pivotal again, because here's somebody from my old world writing about Bitcoin in the way I understand it, but then he could layer on top of that. And then Nick Bhatia, Layered Money. I mean, all the books are over there on the back of the bookshelf here. A real avalanche of people have, come forward and put their voice and their thoughts to this, and it's such an incredible space to be. And yeah, I'm just thankful to be able to help the ecosystem in the best way that I can.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with that, Daniel. And I just think that, a lot of the people that are getting into Bitcoin, they really are trying to grasp an understanding and avoid casting aspersions about what this asset is. And I just absolutely enjoy hearing you rattle off so many books, so many writers in the space. When I got in 2017, I didn't take it as serious as I do now, but the real pivotal moment for me was when Alex Gladstein dropped his article, Bitcoin is a Trojan Horse. When that article dropped and I read that on Bitcoin Mag, that implored me to start writing on my own for Bitcoin Magazine and some of these other platforms. And, it's just beautiful to see so many people really understand, especially now with all the banking insolvencies that we're seeing and the price shooting up right now. I think a lot of people are really getting that orange pill, that hardcore orange pill about where this thing is going, and that you cannot really trust banking industries. You can't trust an intermediary to hold your store value. And I think that that's the hard pill that a lot of people are learning right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And look how quick people learn nowadays. I was blown away by class of 2020 because everybody was in lockdown and whatever else. But that was a palpable shift. You could feel the shift even on Twitter. You're like, whoa, there's an explosion of Bitcoin maxis, and there's an explosion of understanding, and there's an explosion of new people coming in. But the new people were up to speed so damn quick. What took us like 4 or 5 years to grapple with, they were getting it in 4 or 5 months. It was unbelievable. And Sailor's a perfect example of that. Perfect example. Because he'd seen it early days in 2013 and dismissed it just like everybody else. But then COVID comes around, March 2020, he goes into lockdown, and he's got that melting ice cube as $50 million sitting on his balance sheet. He went from March 2020 to September, and then 20 million. And what was the first $20 million? I think was the first buy, and then the rest of the month after. Unbelievable, an unbelievable descent into the rabbit hole, especially when you think how many months he would have had to have dragged the board down the rabbit hole with him to get that clearance. I know he had the majority voting rights, but he still would have had to have got the board up to speed as well. So, oh my God. I mean, that might have taken him 2 months of begging and pleading and just shoving content down their necks. That's how quickly he got it. But there are other people out there. A personal friend of mine, I've had a few personal friends, had a few phone calls. A few weeks later, they're like, oh yeah, we're all in. I'm thinking about remortgaging the house. What? Wait. So that is a testament to the amount of quality educational resources are out there now. And books, articles, podcasts, YouTube videos, they're all there. And this is what is really going to speed things up. And people get hung up on the wrong price metric because they're looking at the amount of dollars per Bitcoin. Like, oh, wow, okay. And they're just transfixed on that because they haven't made that mental mind shift yet into that doesn't matter. I'm not going, I need to switch my unit of account into Bitcoin rather than dollars. But if we just look at the amount of people that join the network every day, that number never goes down. Ever. Every single day. More people are going to join the network. So if you just base your investment theory on that, you will find conviction a lot quicker.
Basing your investment theory on just understanding that number go up technology is exponential, you will really quickly find that Bitcoin is the solution to a lot of your problems. And I really wanted to talk about something that I think that you did was major and super impactful for people, even if they're not aware of it, which was your journey to Madeira. And the interesting thing is that I had Canute on this show and we had a conversation, a very in-depth conversation. Please check out that episode. But he was actually in Madeira at the time, filming that documentary when we had the conversation. And Canute is one of the smartest people I've ever met in Bitcoin. He's so insightful and humble and just super giving. He has no problem giving you the shirt off his back. And I wanted to ask you, Daniel, like, what was it like trying to convince the president of Madeira to get onto a Bitcoin standard on that island?
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize you were interviewing him when we were all there. That's funny. Okay. Yeah, and a big shout out to Canute. I echo everything that you just said there. And sorry, Canute, I didn't include your name in that list of books that I was mentioning, because they again were a brilliant resource for my own thinking. And Canute was one of the very early guests on my show, and we've become very, very good friends. So the whole way this came about, that the story of the president of Madeira goes back to about February or March of last year, when Andre Loja, a Madeiran pleb, had contacted me separately about another issue. He wanted to translate my book into Portuguese. So my book is called Choose Life, and it's nothing about Bitcoin. It's about how my wife and I escaped the fiat hamster wheel and took our kids out of school and started traveling the world and discovered world schooling and self-directed education, and how we traveled for 2.5 years via the sharing economy, and how I wasn't broke and living under a bridge is basically how that book goes. And it's just a tool for people to think differently about, maybe I could do it as well if these guys did it. So the book was out there. Andre had listened to the show, then he'd read the book, and he wanted to translate that book into Portuguese so other Portuguese speaking families could, learn from it. So we'd agreed for him to do that and everything. I was more than happy. I didn't want any contract or any money for it. And just go with it. I'll send you the manuscript, and good luck. Translating a book is very difficult work. So he texted me about 2 weeks later saying, "Holy shit, Daniel, call me straight away." Okay, I got the message. He said, "Yeah, I just had a meeting with the president of Madeira. He came to my co-working space, and he was walking around the co-working space, and he was saying to me, how do we get more entrepreneurs? How do we bring in more businesses? How do we bring in more digital nomads? How can we push forward, business in the island? We can't just rely on tourism." And so Andre said, "Well, you need to accepting Bitcoin, and we've got to start educating people about Bitcoin on the island." And the president said, "Okay, invite whoever you want to Madeira, and they can come and meet with us and explain to us the reason why we should focus on Bitcoin." So he he panicked when he got that positive response from the president, and he wanted just to bounce some ideas off of me of who we should fly in and get to speak with him. So we got hold of Samson Mao, and he was going to get hold of a few other people and fly in and have the meeting and the presentation. But there was a conflict of schedules, and that ended up not working out. So Andre's second idea was, well, should we take the president to Miami to meet some people at the conference so he can actually get a feel that this thing is for real, because they were expecting like 25,000 people to show up. So we pitched that idea to the organizers, to Bitcoin Magazine. They fell off their chairs and like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "Yes, of course. Please bring him." So Miguel, the president, he accepted the invitation, and he brought his cabinet with him, chief of staff, and the guy who is the head of the International Business Center there, based on Madeira. So the three of them flew over, and I arranged to have them meet Michael Saylor for breakfast, because we figured if anybody can orange pill anyone, it's going to be Saylor. So he graciously accepted, and we went along and had breakfast with him, and he spent 45 minutes orange pilling. It was the most amazing orange pilling session I've ever seen. The president and his two staff members on the importance of pushing out the right education to the people of Madeira, not making it legal tender, not making any laws or anything like that, just concentrate on the education. And it was after that meeting that the president decided, he spoke with Andre and said, when we get back, we need to set up an organization. You guys can set up a non-profit organization, and that will be part funded by the government. You'll have to find some private funding as well. And then this is what we're going to do. We're going to roll out this educational program, which was great because they already had Consensus Network on the island, who are translating as many books as they can, Bitcoin books, into as many different languages as they can, primarily, obviously, Portuguese. So there's already a big education aspect there. And then Andre organized with the president to have other Bitcoiners fly into the island and meet with the other departments of the government, which Miguel wanted to have touch points with Bitcoin as well. So that included like the tourist board, that included the energy company, that included the Minister of Finance, that included an investment firm. And just recently I was back and we met some private enterprises, a big construction company, and we also met with the brewery company, and also met with the golf course. So all of these things are slowly being pulled together. And again, it's important for people who are listening to understand that it is a grassroots initiative completely focused on education. In any way, shape or form that education might come, including trying to source some Bitcoin ATM machines to have put in, probably downtown in Funchal, maybe at the airport, where people just having that touch point and they can use and go and play with it. There's a big population living abroad, either in Venezuela, for example, even in the US, even in Miami. There's a lot of Madeiran people living in Miami. So remittances would be another great way to help people understand the educational part of Bitcoin, of how you can transfer money to each other and keep all of that value without going through, the legacy financial rails. So meetups are held there the first Friday of every month, and everybody is welcome. It's free and open to anybody to come and learn about Bitcoin. And each month there's some kind of different topic. They did, I think 2 months ago, they got everybody there downloading a wallet of Satoshi or a Moon wallet and, passing Bitcoin around in a circle so everybody could get a feel of how it worked. And, this thing is not going to happen in a day. It's going to happen over the course of the next few years. But over the course of the next few years, I think in 2 or 3 years' time, what will be going on there? There will be a Bitcoin Commons, very much like what's been set up in Tennessee and Austin, where you will have a big building completely geared up to attract entrepreneurs. They'll be running the meetups out of there. They'll be running accelerators out of there. They'll be running courses out of there, whether that's, leveraging courses that were already out that we can just use and plug in, or whether that is inviting people to come onto the island and run your own course, do a coding course, do a development course. There are so many ideas that slowly but surely it will hopefully become a place where Bitcoiners can go and meet and build together. And I think the timing is perfect. We all suffered greatly during lockdowns, and many Bitcoiners around the world are looking for other options of where they should be setting their family up, where they're going to be safest, and where they can be just more around more Bitcoiners.
Just watching the documentary, I always was just inspired to see you guys go down there and kind of change the world. And one thing I was always curious about, and I don't know how much you can speak to this, but I've always been curious about like the economics of the island. Of course, I don't know if tourism is how they really make their bread and butter, or remittances, like you said, but I was always thinking about gold, especially having like Jeff Booth down there and, kind of talking about the economic sector of the island. I wanted to know from you, Daniel, like, why didn't they just, have the central bank send them more money, or just buy gold from Portugal on leverage, or, there's so many other ways that they could have kind of used this to kind of arbitrage their economics or their economy on the island. And just to have Bitcoin be an option, I think is huge. So my question is like, why are gold bugs wrong about, having quote unquote bars of gold or bullion on your balance sheet instead of having something like Bitcoin, which I think is a paradigm shifting technology?
Yeah, so they are still part of the EU, and they are so they're semi-autonomous from the mainland of Portugal. So on the mainland of Portugal, you have the opposing party in charge, for example. So Madeira, they do have their own election, which is ongoing at the moment. So it looks as though President Miguel Albuquerque is going to win again. So that's not going to upset his vision of helping people understand what Bitcoin is. But as far as him being able to put anything like gold or Bitcoin or any other kind of assets on the balance sheet of the Madeiran purse is impossible. He just can't do it. So tourism is their number one method of income. They do have the International Business Center there, where a lot of foreign companies can list their business within Madeira at a much lower corporate tax rate. So a lot of shipping companies, for example, will sail under the Madeiran flag because they'll be listed in Madeira. But yeah, his whole reasoning for the Bitcoin, again, I don't want to say the word adoption. It's not the right word. It's for the people, for the citizens of the island to understand the necessity so that they can start interacting with it and putting it on their own personal family balance sheets, rather than it be a top-down order effect like we're now stacking Bitcoin as the government of Madeira. That's never going to happen. I don't see any way that could happen unless some of the government-owned entities started accepting Bitcoin for their services. For example, the electric company, if they started accepting Bitcoin for their services, then I guess you're de facto stacking Bitcoin onto the balance sheet of the treasury. But we're still a long, long way away from that as well. And we're still a long way from the president himself being completely orange-pilled. He gets that this is going to be a first mover advantage for his island and for his people if we can get people up to speed and actually picking up the books and listening to the speeches and watching the pods. Otherwise, there's no other way to force it. It's got to happen naturally, but you've got to put the tools in front of people so they can actually use them.
Yes, thank you for that transparency, because when I watched the documentary, in my mind, my Bitcoiner mind, I'm like, yes, they're gonna fully make Bitcoin legal tender. They're gonna put it on their balance sheet. They're gonna roll out a digital wallet, and everybody's just gonna use it, and that's gonna be another conduit or place, outside of El Salvador or CAR where people can actually go. I mean, they still can, obviously, but of course, we didn't see the inner workings of all that stuff in the documentary. So thank you, Daniel, for clearing up, and letting people know like tourism is their main form of income. And, we implore people to check out the documentary, check out Madeira, visit the country, see for yourself how beautiful the island is and what they're working on as far as a Bitcoin educational rollout.
Mm-hmm. It's still very difficult to even spend Bitcoin there. This is how early it is. But that's why we need more plebs to go. Because the more plebs that go and the more plebs that keep asking, can I buy my coffee with Bitcoin? Can I buy my beer with Bitcoin? So when we were there just 4 weeks ago. I managed to find, just by the plebs that lived there. It's like, okay, where can I go get coffee? Where can I go get a haircut? Where can I go? It's like, okay, this place, this place, this place, and you go and support. That is so important, because now all of a sudden, you're just a random dude that's walking into a hairdresser's in the middle of freaking nowhere, right? You're not. It's not in a part of the touristy area at all. And like, why are you here? Because I know you accept Bitcoin. And then you see their eyes. You see that they completely change. They're like, oh, Really? Yeah. My friend told me that you accept Bitcoin, so I'm here for a haircut with my son. We're here on holiday, but we did not get holiday haircuts because I knew that I was going to come here and use your hairdressers so that we could pay you with Bitcoin. And he was touched and humbled, and more people doing that. And then actually, Canute did it 3 days later because he was on the island again at the same time. So those touch points for him are massive because he had another business, which he's now going to go and start accepting Bitcoin in that business. And then he's going to be telling his friends and family, like, these crazy dudes, they come from all over the place. They're still tourists, but they want to spend Bitcoin. And that's the message we need to keep sending to these merchants, because it might take 5 or 6 touch points for them to even consider it. But when they do, there's a Maya Coffee, which is right downtown in Funchal. It's almost like a mecca now in Madeira. Every Bitcoiner has to go and get a coffee from there just because they know they saw, I think it was Joe Hall, he did it first when we were all in Madeira having these meetings. He asked the guy if he would accept Bitcoin. He said yes. He got out his phone, made the thing, put it on Twitter, bam. Now, every time somebody goes there, they do the same thing. So this guy's getting free marketing from plebs and getting people through the door that just want to spend Bitcoin. And it's changed his way of thinking completely. And so, baby steps. That's what it is, but it will happen, and it's gonna look a lot different in a few years' time.
Yes, and that's the beauty of a circular economy, right? And speaking of travel, speaking of going to Madeira, and you just having these great experiences, kind of traveling all over the world. I wanted to ask you something that I know you're passionate about, which is your family and traveling with your family. And do you believe traveling the world with your family is teaching your kids about low time preference?
Yeah. Um, I think traveling the world with your family or doing any kind of long trip, even if it's just around your own home country with your family, is essential to learning so many things. So many things. But teaching them about low time preference, yeah, in particular. Uh, I think so. Um, Nothing happens that quickly when you're traveling, especially if you're on a long journey. You have to be patient to get to the destination. And then when you obviously get to the destination, you have the amazing time and you get the amazing experiences and all of that other fun stuff. And you also have to delay gratification because, you're not living on the hamster wheel anymore. So you can't just order whatever you want, whenever you want from Amazon. And you can't just pop down to the local fast food place and blow €50 on takeaway food that's not even going to nutritionally enhance anybody's life. You have to start changing everything, and they see that, and this is what's so amazing about kids when they learn from example, and as long as they are around their parents, more rather than less, they will learn the habits and the lessons that you are passing down. So I would say, yeah, for sure. And it depends on the way that you travel. Some people are traveling around the world, and on a boat, I can't imagine the low time preference that would instill in somebody sitting on an ocean all day, staring at the stars at night. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Daniel, because you inspire me. Like, I only have one child, my daughter, she's 2 years old. So, I've done a lot of traveling. I've had the benefit and the opportunity to travel to large swaths of the planet, Canada, Africa, the Caribbean. So I've been able to kind of go around and move around, and I really want to have my daughter have those similar experiences. So I look to people such as yourself to kind of get that inspiration and that motivational courage to make sure that my child is worldly and understands different cultures and different contexts and, different experiences that will help her to be a better human being. And I think that Bitcoin is helping people do that as well because, for example, like Madeira and El Salvador, it's kind of forcing people to travel outside of the US or Canada kind of have a different experience, taste different foods, have a peer-to-peer economy or transaction with somebody that might not speak the native language as you. And I think that all of these things are combined to really help people have a overall understanding of, that we're all human beings. We all, have emotions and love, and we all want to be free and have freedom money. So I think Bitcoin is definitely helping people, get to that on that front.
Yeah, it opens their minds as well so much, and takes away a lot of fears from, what do you generally each day you just see fear pumped at you out of the television screen, and that's what keeps people rooted to the spot. When you actually get out there and you take the kids out and they travel and they hear different languages, they're not scared of them. They're not afraid of them because they're like, oh, right, yeah, okay, whatever. I remember when I was 2, 3, 4, 5, then we would go somewhere and a dude was speaking a different language. It's not a big deal. So having them open to those kind of experience very, very early, and food is another great one, because the smell that comes with that as well, and the texture and the taste and the cultural stories behind why that food specifically is so good, and it's really held our kids in very good stead. So they are very open-minded. They love meeting new people. They're not afraid to interact with new people or try new things, and that is such a gift that you can give to a human being, especially a child.
I couldn't agree more, and that's my goal, to stack as much Bitcoin as I can and be able to travel the world freely and educate people on Bitcoin. And podcast is just the start of that. And Daniel, what I wanted to ask you is, there's a halving coming up in 2024. So, what would be your call to action for the class of 2024 now getting into Bitcoin and are learning about this asset?
Keep learning. That is the first most important step. Keep learning. Invest slowly, because that will help you dive deeper into the topic, because all of a sudden you've got the skin in the game, and you have got something to protect. But don't get over your skis. Don't go crazy and just drop in like half your life savings immediately. That would just be suicide. Set up a deliberate plan, whether you can do that daily. Daily would be brilliant. X amount per day. Just stack away and read every day and listen to something every day. And what you will find is, after a few weeks of doing that, you'll be comfortable upping that daily stack. And you'll start cutting other things out of your life so that you can do that, at a greater rate. Then you'll get to the point where you're like, God damn that guy. Why didn't I just go all in at the time? Why did I listen to that advice? Because you would have felt as though you've missed the great big run up. But then invariably we have an 80% drawdown. So just stick with the dollar cost average idea. Until you've done at least one cycle. And people think that, oh my God, one cycle, that's 4 years. What, you want me just to take it slow for 4 years and learn as much as I can and not go all in? And you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do. Because after 4 years, you'll have so much more of a rounded idea and a rounded picture of where this thing really is going and what it really can mean for you and your family, that you do have to take it very, very slowly and deliberately. And, self-custody as well. How did I forget? So dollar cost average. So learn dollar cost average and self-custody. The lot. As soon as you can. Onto a hardware wallet or a signing device, whatever you want to call it. There are many, many out there. Do your own research. That comes with the learning. And then, keep it very, very safe. You do that for 2 or 3 cycles, you're going to be golden. You're going to be in such a commanding place. And if you can build a business alongside that at the same time, or accept Bitcoin into your business if you have your own business, or get paid in Bitcoin if you can just switch your wage into Bitcoin, which you can with Bitwage. Just go to bitwage.com or bitwage.io, check which one, and just open an account with them and say each month I want 5, 10, 15, 20% switched into Bitcoin. That's the way to really get stacking quickly and efficiently. Yeah, and like I say, 3 cycles is 12 years. It sounds like a long time, but it really isn't. Not if that 12 years is going to unlock the rest of your living days for you to do whatever it is that you want and spend the time with whoever you want to spend the time with and build the goods and services that you believe that the market truly needs and desires. Then that's your way off the hamster wheel. Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme. It's an earn your freedom deliberately scheme. And this is the way to do it. And if it's just 12 years, then lower your time preference.
Powerful words from Daniel Prince, ladies and gentlemen. And, I just think I'm just so inspired. I'm so humbled and grateful to have this conversation with you, Daniel. I think that, you are a beacon in this ecosystem. And I think a lot of people can learn a lot from you and be inspired by you. I know I definitely am. But before we go, could you give people your social media handles and any future endeavors that you might want people to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. And thank you for what you're doing. You can find me at Princey SOV. That's store of value. And you can reach out in DMs. DMs are open. The book that I referenced earlier, Choose Life, is found on Consensus Network. That's with a K. And if you use /bitten, and if you use the code bitten at checkout, you get 10% discount on that or any book for that fact, if you're going to start your learning journey. And if you pay via the Lightning Network, you will get a further 10% discount on all of your purchases. So Consensus Network is a great place to go and buy your books for yourself or for your friends and family. And like I said earlier, they have a great list of different languages there. And Knut's books are on there as well. So you can go and lift some of those. But Twitter is probably the best place still. Princey SOV.
Thank you, Daniel Prince, for that insight. Once again, thank you for taking time to be on the Bitcoin Source, a Bitcoin conversation. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for having me on, brother. Take care.